On Sunday, May 13th, there was a feature article in the New York Times, "A Generation Hobbled by College Debt." You know, there was a time when a college degree was a ticket to success in this country. The point of the article was that more and more people are getting college degrees, but they're not getting jobs, and they're being saddled with huge debt. It's not just their problem, because there's a record number of defaults on this debt, and that means we all pay through an increasing deficit and eventually either higher taxes, reduced government services, or both. This situation is sad because it is totally unnecessary. Using a combination of just-in-time higher education and hiring assessments, we could lick this problem. Let me explain. When I graduated with a degree and started working, I was a little disappointed that much of the education I had worked hard to garner over 4 years was not really needed. When I asked a number of people about this, I was told the point of all this education was to lay a solid foundation, that I didn't know what I would be doing in the future, and I was better off being prepared for a broad range of possibilities. What looked to me like a lot of extra and unneeded classes was considered by them to be broadening. When I became chair of electrical and computer engineering at the University of Maine, I noticed a curious thing. I noticed that our placement of interns at local companies was very high, something on the order of 80 to 90%. Our students were snapped up after their sophomore and junior years for temporary jobs over a summer or a semester. We called them near engineers. In some cases, it was hard getting them to come back to school. The companies were often satisfied with them just the way they were. There was clearly a value to companies employing our students before they graduated. The reason related more to their engineering mindset and less to the actual knowledge and experience they brought to the job. There needs to be a stronger correlation between character attributes and needed job competencies, rather than a tie between a college diploma and a job posting degree requirement. That connection is artificial and just doesn't make sense in many situations. Okay, so fast forward to today. We need to solve two major problems. One, the extraordinary debt being incurred by post-secondary students in pursuing their degrees. How can they get their college bills paid sooner? And two, the decreasing value of a college degree for evaluating the future performance of new employees. How can employers more quickly identify people who have the skills they need and get them on board as soon as possible? Well, there are two outcomes that need to be achieved by students and employers to solve these problems. Students need to accumulate and document the skills and education they've achieved in their first 1 or 2 years of college to show employers they're capable of performing appropriate jobs. All right, well, let me expand on that. You know, over the past 30 years, accrediting bodies in this country have done a pretty good job in making colleges document the required student competencies to satisfy course, program, and college objectives. These competency assessments must be made more accessible to the public and need to be stated in a form that is useful to potential employers. For example, if a student can score high grades, and even better, show a portfolio of work in a course or collection of courses for which a potential employer can also see the list of competencies that the college has determined must be mastered in those courses, the student can argue that they're prepared to perform a particular job. Now, this assumes the needed job competencies are also well defined, which brings us to the second problem. Employers need to identify the core competencies and characteristics of people who are successful in all their company positions. Just as colleges have identified the competencies needed to show mastery in various courses and programs, employers need to identify the detailed competencies needed to perform various jobs. This should be true all the way up the line, from entry-level jobs to the CEO position. Many jobs, especially entry-level jobs, do not need a college degree. Unfortunately, this kind of detailed competency assessment is not commonly done by most companies. What we have here, as they say, is a failure to communicate. Employers do know what they need. At least someone in the company knows what they need, though we may need to tease it out of them. Also, colleges have a record of the competencies students have achieved, assuming their grades are a good indication of their learning, which is another problem. The difficulty is that this information is not easily transferred. Ultimately, employers need to assess job applicant competencies independently, along with some evaluation of their attitude, their aptitude, and their cultural fit to the companies. When we do have these communications, and they're out there for everybody to see, the communication itself starts to influence the behavior of colleges, students, and employers. When everyone can see the competencies being achieved and the competencies that are needed, they start altering their behavior to achieve a match. The result is better academic advising, better educated students, and more qualified employees. It used to be that students and employers could both wait for students to complete their degrees before committing to a job relationship. This is no longer the case. Students need to begin paying their college bills now, and employers need to hire people with exactly the competencies they need now. The difficulty is that competency assessment is not particularly an area in which companies have expertise or want to become involved. That's where sensible hiring can help bridge the gap by giving companies the tools, training, and services needed to hire based on the assessment of competencies, aptitude, and attitude. There is much more to be said on this subject. Please go to our website to see how we are trying to change the culture of hiring. Thanks and have a good day.